Good evening. Call to order the March 15th, 2023 Area Plan Commission of Tippecanoe County to order. And first on the agenda is the roll call.
Jackson Bogan. Here. Larry Leverins. Carlos Snodgrass. Gary Schroeder.
Present.
Jerry Reynolds.
Present.
Greg Jones. Bob Metzger. Here. Diana Looper. Here. Vicki Pearl.
Here.
Michelle Dennis.
Present.
Tom Murtaugh. Perry Brown. Tracy Brown.
Present.
Jason Domkowski. Lisa Dullum. Kathy Parker.
Here.
Jody Hamilton.
Here.
Quorum present.
Very good, thank you. Briefing session.
Thank you. The petitioner for rezone case Z-2872, the Friends of the Education Building Incorporated, has withdrawn their petition, and the petitioner for Z-2876, Sears Solutions Cooperative, Inc., has requested a continuance to the May 17th APC public hearing. All other cases are set to go forward tonight.
Very good, thank you. Next on the agenda, approval of minutes. Jackson.
I move to approve the minutes from the February 15, 2023 public hearing as submitted.
A second.
Any corrections or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Next on the agenda, we have APC Resolution 2023-03. And we need to put that on the...
I was going to say, do you need a motion on that?
I think that we do.
Uh,
You're going to have to make it.
I move to hear and approve APC Resolution 2023-03.
I second. Thank you. David Hiddle with the Area Plan Commission. There's three items to look at today. These are three matters that were discussed at the Ordinance Committee meeting at the beginning of the month, and they are coming to the full APC for action now. The first involves the combination of the Ordinance Committee, the proposed combination of the Ordinance Committee and the Bylaws Committee into a single entity. I'll note before you take away the conversation, Gary, that in the bylaws, the Executive Committee gets a lot of coverage. It's very prescriptive about what it does and how it does it. The other committees, at best, are only mentioned, and this is where they're mentioned as committees of the APC. So you're really not changing anything in the bylaws to combine these two committees. You're really just establishing new policy. So, Gary, if you want to take it away for that part.
We just talked about it, that as we make changes to bylaws, the membership of the Plan Commission's the Ordinance Committee and Bylaws Committee are about the same membership, maybe one person different. So instead of having to call a special meeting, we just thought it made sense to combine those meetings, and every meeting would be a Ordinance and Bylaw Committee membership, so we could address those issues on a more timely manner. What did I miss on that? The number?
The number of members.
Members, that brings up a question, because we thought in the past that our subcommittees had to be less than the majority. Is that statutory, or were we under a false impression?
It's not statutory. It's not statutory, but I think it's a common practice. You don't generally want to recreate a majority on a committee, because then it could have some unintended consequences. Once you make a vote, you've sort of spoken for this body, which is really not the intention. So it's better to keep it under a majority.
Okay, so we'll probably maintain that. If it's not 8, we'll have 8 members on that committee, and the president appoints those. And I spoke with Larry, and we'll wait till he gets back next month, and he'll figure out that membership of those committees. What else? I think that's it, David.
Okay. It'll be called the Ordinance/Bylaws Committee. Okay.
Yes.
The second item is, it involves a pamphlet or a brochure. It's an instructional brochure we hand out to petitioners describes how to file a rezoning petition, and it is located on the back page of the bylaws. We consider this an appendix, which includes all of the forms that our department uses. And we requested at the ordinance committee meeting that this document be removed from that list. Any amendment to these documents requires, because it's in the bylaws, I think requires us to come to the APC and receive their approval for that amendment. And we talked about perhaps removing the entire appendix from the bylaws, but it was decided that we would wait for that. We are in the process of overhauling all of our forms, so we'll get that big overhaul completed and then bring up that conversation later. But in the meantime, if we could remove the pamphlet, it's old, it needs some redoing itself, and it's probably more than the others subject to ongoing revision as we, see things within it that need refining. So the request tonight is simply to remove the document titled Rezoning Here's How from this list of forms in the back of the bylaws.
And David, for clarification, it was actually not a form. I mean, it's an informational piece,
Right,
correct?
it is.
So
Yeah, it is different from all of these other items, which are forms or applications. It's just an informational sheet.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions or comments about that?
I just would like to say, after looking at that booklet, or whatever we want to call it, and how informational it was, maybe once it gets updated, it could be put out where it's easily accessible for those of us that have, like, people that come to us, that we could say, like, why don't you start here type of thing?
Sure.
Because it's not readily accessible, or I couldn't figure out where to find it.
Yeah.
So just a suggestion.
That's a good point.
Okay. Ready for the next one?
Then the last one involves some house cleaning. Can you take me to the... Keep going. There you go. We changed, as if you'll recall, a few months ago, we changed the bylaws because we're changing how we require notice be sent to parties entitled to receive notice. And one of the things that we did with there is we're no longer putting the burden of creating the notice letter on the petitioner, but we're doing that ourselves to make sure that the right information is getting out, that it's getting out uniformly. But there are some instances in the bylaws where old language, which you see denoted with the red arrow, still says the petitioner is responsible for putting together these letters. And so we're just back, again, it's kind of a house cleaning measure to get rid of that language in recognition of the fact that staff is now doing it. So there's 3 instances. This one involved in subdivision plats. This one involved in vacational plats, and then the last one involved mobile home park petitions. So there was language that kind of snuck by us as we changed the bylaws a couple months ago. And that's it.
Very good, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board on that? Do we get citizens' comments on this?
We sure can.
Okay.
Do we have a motion on those?
Jackson did make the
Okay,
motion
so the
for...
overall motion, and
Yeah.
those are the 3 subgroups that we're asking for a vote on, correct?
Yeah, Amendment 107
Yes,
is on the
thank you.
floor.
Great.
Yes.
Quick correction there, Gary. It's Resolution 2023-03, I believe. Is that right?
Thank you very much, it is. Got it, thank you. Okay. If there's nothing else, David, I will take citizens' comments now. If anyone has anything to add to that? Hearing none, we have a yellow ballot. While we're doing that, I think good work by staff to get that stuff cleaned up.
12 ballots cast, all in favor.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, as we enter our public hearing portion of the meeting, I have a statement to read that talks about our procedures. For those of you unfamiliar with our procedures, the commission would like you to know the following. When we hear requests to subdivide land, we are only concerned with whether the actual drawings showing the division into lots meet the technical requirements of our ordinance. The question of appropriateness has already been determined. Anybody wishing to make comments or provide us with information regarding any subdivision petition will be given the opportunity to do so. When we hear requests for a zoning change, we are trying to determine if the new zone being requested and the uses allowed in that zone are appropriate to that property and supported by the comprehensive plan. With each case being heard, our staff will present its report. Then the person requesting the rezone would be given an opportunity to speak. Following that, those wishing to speak in favor of the rezone will be recognized, then those who wish to oppose it will have a turn. And that will be your only time to speak. The person requesting the action will be allowed a rebuttal. Plan Commission members will then ask questions and finally vote. Please limit your statements to no more than 5 minutes, and we ask that you not repeat what others have already said before you. We are a 17-member body with a majority of 17 as 9. Regardless of how many commissioners are actually present, at least 9 votes in favor or 9 votes against are required for the action to be official. If fewer than 9 of us agree to either approve or disapprove the action, the case must be heard again next month. Our vote on a request to subdivide is final. Our vote on a request to rezone serves as a recommendation to the appropriate city council, town council, county commissioners who must ultimately decide on changes in zoning. When addressing the commission, please state your name and address for the record. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. If you need to make a call, please step out of the room before using your phone. All exhibits presented to the commission become property of the commission. And I think staff has a sign-in paper. If you speak after you get done speaking, just sign the sign-in sheet over there. Okay. Next, I think Jackson has something for us.
I move that there be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and to become part of the evidence at such hearing: the Unified Zoning Ordinance, the Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Plan Commission, the application, and all documents filed therewith. The staff report and recommendations on the application be heard this evening and responses from the checkpoint agencies.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, I'm ready for the continuances.
I move to continue Z 2872, the Friends of the Education Building, Inc., and Z 2876, Sears Solutions Cooperative, Inc., AA to I3, to the May 17th APC public hearing at petitioner's request.
Clarification, did the Friends get withdrawn? Okay, so we don't continue the Friends.
My apologies on that.
So we're just
continuing Z 2876, Sears Solutions.
yes. So we have a motion and a second on the floor to continue Z 2876 to May 17th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. So now we're ready for UZO Amendment 107. Jackson.
I move to hear and vote on UZO Amendment Number 107.
Get right.
Great. Well, the staff report really kind of distills all of this. I was going to tease you and say, hey, I'll go ahead and read this ordinance from top to bottom, just so that we're all clear, but I won't. I'm in a happy mood tonight. So, anyway, so the bullet points really kind of lay it all out, and quite honestly, I think we knocked out the better part of 5 pages of ordinance out of the ordinance as a result of these changes. So it really is kind of cutting out the dead wood. We have changes in processes consistent with the bylaw changes, so that PD rezones will be treated just like normal rezones in terms of their notification period. Prior to that, the submission process from top to bottom was all in the code. And so any changes to it, we had to do UZO amendments. So we kind of extracted all that and, essentially see the bylaws, so so that helped a lot. But the salient points are creating a pathway for a change in use plan development, which is an expedited process where you have an existing project that would like to augment its use table, the allowable things you can do, you know, on the project. And nothing physically is going to be changing in terms of the site plan, the landscaping, the building itself. You know, perhaps there might be a new sign or something like that, but the project itself can contain this new change in use. And so we wanted to create sort of an expedited pathway so people didn't have to replicate all of the planning documents that normally come with plan developments. They could just reference the final detailed plans that are recorded upstairs saying, that's our site plan, because nothing's changing, but here's our new use table that's going to now be attached to it. And so it'll still go through a rezoning process. At the end of the day, legislative bodies will still have another shot at bat relative to that. But it's a much quicker process and less costly for the developer because they don't have to redo these plans again. And then, of course, I mentioned the bylaw change, getting rid of all that information about the submission process since it's now more easily spelled out in the bylaws. And then providing opportunities for extensions. Just in our experience with some of these projects, that we've had a few that came up real close against deadlines that just seemed arbitrary in terms of, 2 years from the rezone date you have and to get final detailed plans approved and recorded. We want to extend that to 5. Particularly during economic ups and downs, it just gives people a little bit more elbow room than they have right now, as evidenced by the more than half dozen projects that I have that are in that in-between space between the rezone and final detailed plans. They got the rezone, but construction costs are crazy and they don't want to build right now. And so tick-tock, that 2 years starts to go quickly. So that's a positive. And then same thing with the final detailed plan approval, and for the same reasons. If you have a multi-phase project and there's an economic downturn or what have you, and they pause that phase, well, now they go from 10 to 15 years to complete the remaining phases, which we think is more than enough time to finish that out, or at least give you an opportunity to sell that option to somebody else that will finish it out. So in all, we think that we've simplified things, clarified things, and given developers a little more breathing room than they've had in the past. So, happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Questions or comments from the staff or from the commission? Any comments from the audience? If not, we have a yellow ballot for that. You must choose.
We have a unanimous ballot for approval. Thank you.
Very good. Once again, good work, Ryan and staff, on that. Nice job.
You're welcome.
Subdivisions, Jackson.
I move to hear and vote on S5116, Meyer number 186 subdivision, a replat of Lot 4, minor sketch.
I second.
I have a motion as second. As petitioner or the representative, or I guess we do staff first. There we go, Amanda, I apologize. I'm trying to move things
I
along.
can sit down. No.
Thank you.
All right. So the petitioner is seeking primary approval for a replat of an existing lot. This property is located on the west side, just in front of the Meyer. The Meyer is just north of the lot there, you can see, and then to the left is the larger building is Menards. Thank you. You can advance. The next slide here, you'll see that the property is currently under construction. There are 2 buildings. The smaller one is an oil change. The larger one is a car wash. Car washes have always been accessory uses to gas stations, for example. The Unified Subdivision Ordinance does not require a subdivision to build both of these on one lot. So it is staff's opinion that they are asking for a subdivision so that they can request more signs. As it currently stands, there is a limited amount of square feet that they're allowed under the sign regulations for their entire lot. By subdividing it, they can ask for each individual lot's sign allotment. We are recommending standard conditional primary approval, but again, we just want to state that we are not endorsing this as a way to subvert our sign regulations. Happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Petitioner or the representative have a presentation.
Hi, my name is Joseph Britt. I am the store manager for the Take 5 Oil Change located here in Lafayette. I'll also be managing the location you see here once it's open. I'm just to clarify, there's the reason why we're wanting to subdivide the lot doesn't really have anything to do with the signs. Baldwin Capital Partners is going to be operating the oil change, while Driven Brands will be operating the car wash. It'll be separate staff, separate holdings entirely. Driven Brands acquired the lot under a various name, I have no idea. And now we're just subdividing that so that the franchisee, which is Take 5 Indiana or Baldwin Capital Partners, and Driven Brands, which is the larger corporation, they're split lots.
Okay, very good. Anybody in the audience wish to comment on this? Thank you. We'll let you know if we have any questions. Thank you. Anybody else from the audience wish to comment? Questions from the board?
That corner box.
I believe it is just the oil change on the bottom left-hand corner, so that square, that black line that you see right about here. Yes.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we have a white ballot. I believe there's no bonding, it's just conditional primary approval.
I have 12 votes in favor of approving.
Thank you very
Conditional
much.
approving.
Next on the agenda, Tomish Developers, Jackson.
I move to hear and vote on Z 2874, Tomish Developers LLC, PDRS and R3W to R4W.
I second.
Motion is second, David.
Thank you. This is a 4.2 acre site just south of the Walmart in West Lafayette. If you get your bearings, there you go. And north of a series of apartment complexes and condominium complexes. Celery Bog is to the west, and to the east is the Sagamore Northwestern right-of-way. The site is unimproved. It's just got trees and scrub brush all over it. It was rezoned in 1984 to PDRS, which is Planned Unit Development Residential, And the plan at that point was to develop 128 units in 8 buildings. What was actually developed was just this part of that rezoning down here. It's one building with 16 units, so the rest of it was never realized. But that PDRS language still governs the site, so it can only be developed according to that planned unit development without this rezoning, which is the reason for this rezoning. The rezoning is a request to R4W, that is the West Lafayette higher density multifamily district. Looking back at some of the historical documents, we're going back to 1969. This site was zoned for multifamily development, and the old 1981 plan even calls for multifamily development here. It's kind of a classic case where you're sandwiched between other multifamily development, a pretty heavily traveled roadway, floodplain, and then a pretty heavily intense commercial center, which is a good spot for high-density residential. So staff is supportive of this request and would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, David. Petitioner, the representative.
Good evening, Kevin Riley with Riley and Teeter and Schreier, representing the petitioner. Shane O'Malley, the principal for the developer, is here as well. We appreciate Mr. Hiddle's comments. We appreciate the effort staff put into the report. We agree with those comments in the report. In particular, we agree that this is a correct zone for this location. The plan is to build a multi-unit, multi-building, multi-family development at this location. You may be aware we have filed variance requests to be heard by the BZA in April. Those requests relate only to parking and building height. We have talked to Aaron Easter and Chad Spitznagel with the City of West Lafayette. It's our understanding that they don't have any concerns about this rezone request. So we ask for your approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of this? Anyone opposed? Questions from the commission? Any rebut? There's really nothing to rebut. Okay, it's quick, and I assume West Lafayette is fine. So we have a yellow ballot.
Many years ago.
Nice hiding.
Votes cast, all in favor.
Very good. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is Z2877, Jackson.
I move to hear and vote on Z2877, David Keller, I-3 to GB.
A second.
Motion is second. Amanda, whenever you get a chance. Thank you.
All right. The petitioner in this case is requesting a rezone of an I-3 to a GB. The property is located on North 36th Street, which is, if you know where the movie theater is off of South Street in Lafayette, it's just behind that, just to the north. You can see on the map there, and Target is down to the bottom right there. This is a strip mall commercial center. Most of the tenants there are business offices, so they are no longer industrial type uses in this area or on this property here. The petitioner is hoping to open or use one of the spaces as a non-traditional licensed funeral home. non-traditional, meaning that the back-of-house mortuary services would happen off-site. And those are only permitted, the funeral home is only permitted in a GB zone, which is what brought about this rezone. But it would bring the rest of the tenants into conformity then, with the proper zoning for those uses. So, the most recent rezone was just to the south of it. It had been I-3 and went to GB in 2015. So much like Farabee Drive, we think that this area is probably going more to a commercial corridor as opposed to industrial. So we are in favor of this rezone to GB. Happy to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you, Amanda. Petitioner or the representative? Kevin.
Good evening again, Kevin Riley with Riley, Teeter and Schreier, representing the petitioner. David Keller, the petitioner, is here as well. Can answer any questions you have that maybe I don't have an answer to. Yes, we are seeking to rezone the entire building. Purpose of the rezone is to allow for the use that's intended to operate there. Just to expand a little bit on the non-traditional services, so the idea is to offer, our client's business model allows for him to offer crematory or cremation services and merchandise at a lower cost, and we're seeing a lot of demand for that. There's no plans to have services on site. All the cremation activities will take place off-site in Fowler, but this gives them a storefront to operate from. So we agree with the staff's recommendation and request your approval. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anybody in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone opposed? Questions from the board? Hearing. Go ahead, Jackson.
Is there any way that this could be done by special except? I mean, it's basically an office, right? Somebody's coming in for a retail type service?
Correct. I'm not aware of a special exception, and the rezone does fit, all the current uses fit within that rezone category. And then also you do have the movie theater just to the south, which is a large GB site.
Okay.
You can correct me, but I don't think you can vary uses. It's a use change, so it cannot
Gotcha.
be varied, I believe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not aware of a special exception that would allow
Thank
that.
you.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? Hearing none, we have a yellow ballot.
We have 12 votes in favor of rezoning.
Very good, thank you, Amanda. Next on the agenda, Purdue Research Foundation, Jackson.
I move to hear and vote on Z2878 Purdue Research Foundation DPD Activation Project Plan Development, CBW to PDNR.
I second.
Motion and second, Ryan.
All right, well, back on the west side, this is the Squirrel Park area, which should be familiar to many. Obviously, it's an area that's kind of being transformed bit by bit in its surrounding, but this area is actually kind of tackling Squirrel Park itself. As you can see with the continuum plan development, which is here to the northeast, and the extension of the road, McCutcheon, Squirrel Park actually got bigger because we now have a new street off to the east that didn't exist before. So that's why we have an area of Squirrel Park that is currently, let's see, we can, going the wrong way. Currently, there are no trees on. But there's a lot of mature trees on this site. Obviously, it's been part of the campus community for a long, long time. But it is under the Research Foundation's ownership. It's about this area in question for the rezone is about 1.5 acres. The proposal is very unique, and I can let PRF kind of describe their plans for it, but it's essentially a very large 10,000 square foot barn building is going to be reconstructed here on the site. And I believe a eating, drinking establishment is the proposed use. There's a shot of it. This is meant to be sort of the first of likely 2 installments for Squirrel Park that will likely follow a plan development process. This is in the form-based overlay for Discovery Park, but these are projects that just can't fit in that overlay because they're unique. It's a park space being reconstructed, and then this particular special use with this barn facility wouldn't meet the code's requirements. So that's why we're going the PD route here. And it makes sense given the site's limitations and the dealing with the reconstructing a barn structure on the site. But that's the objective is to get this in place and then later follow up with sort of phase 2, which is kind of the redesign of Squirrel Park. Obviously keeping a lot of the beautiful old mature trees out there, but repurposing it as a true center of the community in this part of town for both Discovery Park, the nearby Providence project, the campus area, and just a real anchor. That's why they call it an activation project. And so I'll let PRF kind of go into more detail, but that's kind of a brief view of the site plan there. There's a lot of hardscaping on the west, or I'm sorry, on the north, south, and east sides for outdoor seating, event space. The west side is kind of has back of house, just a small service drive, so there's really not much traffic coming in and out of the site. And then it's roughly aligned with the new street that was put into the south of Continuum. I think it's called District Boulevard. So the placement is intentional, so that way as you're going down this street to the west, you'll see this structure in the distance. And so kind of all part of a much larger master plan. But that's a kind of an image of the barn where it originally sat, and then just a depiction of what they plan to turn it into. So obviously this fits in well with the land use plan for this area, the 231 corridor. This is the innovation mixed use area. Calls for all sorts of, just innovative mixes of uses. This certainly is one. Not one I would have predicted, but a welcome one. So we are recommending approval, conditional approval with the kind of standard conditions that are put here. And past that, be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, recommending approval. Conditional approval.
Very good, thank you, Ryan. Petitioner or the representative wish to make a presentation?
Hello, Jeremy Slater, and I am the petitioner, so I'm with the Purdue Research Foundation. Kudos to Ryan and staff. They always do such a nice job of understanding and outlining a lot of the details of our projects. Maybe just a really quick historical lesson, not to repeat kind of what Ryan talked about, but we started the Discovery Park District Master Planning process in 2016. A lot had to do with the State Street project, if you remember. And one of the, what I would consider the heartbeat of our community, of the district that we were trying to create within this work, live, play type community was the activation project. And so, if you think about Central Park in New York or Millennium Park in Chicago, right, it's an activated space that brings people kind of through design and some of those things. And so we knew that that was missing and was a critical piece and component within our master plan. And so had always kind of had a vision of some sort. And so around 2019, 2020 timeframe, we actually kind of took that vision a little bit further, and one of the PRF and Purdue board members had an old barn that you can see in the pictures here that really was a good fit. It played a role of the heritage of Purdue University and the agriculture, some of those things. And so we started to kind of play with that idea, how could we use this barn to serve in our activation space? And ultimately, we worked with a lot of stakeholders, some from staff, also from the city, and ultimately trying to figure out what was the best project that we could move forward with. And so we have the barn, as Ryan mentioned, it's a little bit over 10,000 square feet. We envision it to be a space where you could get food, you could get drink, maybe some event space as well. Not necessarily like long-term event space, because again, we want it to be activated. So the fear would be, you go in on a Friday night and it's closed for a wedding, right? That is not what we would envision it to be. It would be open for all, not just the Discovery Park District, but also for really the entire Tippecanoe kind of community. So really excited about this project. We are working with an operator that we hope to announce here in the next few months. The phasing of sorts, I know staff had some questions about that. It's not a standard project, so if we were just building traditionally, we may push this all forward at one time, but the fact that it takes a while to reconstruct a barn piece by piece, our goal is to get started on the barn as quickly as possible, and then we'll follow up with the design of the interior of the barn for the tenant, as well as some of the exterior components. So I do have the full design team here. We've got Delve, which was our architecture firm. We've got Schneider Corporation, which handled the civil site, and then we also have MKSK represented that did a lot of the landscape architecture, as well as they did a lot of tree surveying to see where the best place to preserve as much of Squirrel Park as possible. I'm seeking approval. I wrote that down. That's the only thing I left off.
The punchline, I got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this project? Anyone opposed to this project? Questions from the board? I think it's a good project. I think it'll look really nice over there. So with that, we have a yellow ballot. Just yellow ballot.
Yeah, plan developments can have conditions like that. Unanimous ballot for approval. Carry on to City Hall.
Very good, thank you, Ryan. Next, we have approval of the April Executive Committee agenda. Jackson.
I move that the following requests for subdivisions be placed on the April 5th, 2023 Area Plan Commission Executive Committee agenda at the petitioner's request. Placement thereon being without reference to compliance or noncompliance with the adopted subdivision ordinance. S 5120 650 Sagamore Parkway subdivision minor sketch, and S 5121 1 North Creasy minor subdivision minor sketch.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Determination of variances.
I move that the following requests for variance from the Unified Zoning Ordinance are not requests for use variance prohibited from the consideration by ordinance and statute. BZA 2096 Tomish Developers LLC and BZA 2097 Robert and Julia Coolidge.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Director's report. It's
Thank you. We distributed the report yesterday at the end of the day. I'll just note, as you can see in there, that we're kind of up to our elbows in planning projects at the moment, which is a good thing. We're busy with Tippecanoe and Wabash Townships and the town of Battle Ground, and Perry has asked for a meeting to talk about doing them next. Finishing up West Lafayette Parks Plan, and County Parks has called and wants us to be involved with an update to their master parks plan. So that's good. That's all good. I'll also note that I met with the town of Shadeland's town council last night. They've indicated an interest in joining the APC, and it was a very productive conversation. They're going to respond with some questions, and then I'll go back to have a follow-up meeting with them either next month or the following month, and I think we're on a good trajectory there, too. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Very good, thank you. Any questions? Okay, citizens' comments or grievances? Hearing none, I'll take that final motion
I move to adjourn.
or adjourn. South, on the east side, south side, it's under contract, and they're moving forward, that's senior housing.
Okay.
Are you going next door?
No, I'm not, actually. I don't want to leave her.
I got you. And then on the north side, we just got a LOI.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
I think they're warehousing, which is kind of what Jared Grant's doing.
Sure.
I don't know, but I will keep you up to date and keep asking.
Okay, yeah, I just was wondering, I mean,
Thank you
I've
for
been
that.
going, but we want to, as long as we keep them there updated, that's all we care about. And he'll